Hello ladies and gentlemen, my name's Stylosa, this is Unit Lost, and we're going to have a little chat about Brothers, A Tale of Two Sons. Now, before we start this, I did have a script, but I kind of decided against using the script because I feel like this would make for a much more interesting video if it's more of a informal chat than me actually going into detail on a predefined script that I've wrote. Because I think one of the issues I had with the script that I'd wrote, it focused on, it was almost like a review, which is not really what I want. I kind of want a discussion about the game. So let's discuss the game. So this is Brothers, A Tale of Two Sons, and it is according to Steam, it's an action-adventure indie game. Now, never listen to Steam for genres of games because they have got no idea. Basically, every game is in the action genre. This is it's almost like an interactive story with puzzle elements and a very interesting control system. So let's have a little bit of a discussion about the game. Now, the reason why I played the game, and if I'm totally honest, the game really was not on my radar until recently, where a lot of places like Rock Paper Shotgun, other websites, other YouTube channels were basically saying this game could possibly be, and some were even saying this is Game of the Year. And I'm like, you know what? If this is Game of the Year, and a lot of people are claiming this to be Game of the Year, then I really need to check this out. Because I had visions of a game called Journey, ladies and gentlemen. Now, I'm sure most people know what Journey is. I've never played Journey because, to my knowledge, it's still only available on PlayStation 3, which is no good to me because I don't have a PlayStation 3. So everybody obviously said that was Game of the Year and it won loads of awards. And I thought maybe this is the same sort of thing. And I don't really want to miss this. And, you know, it's there on Steam. I can pick this up right now and I can play through the game. So I went ahead and picked up the game. Also, by the way, my voice may sound a little bit strange still because I'm still recovering from quite a bad throat infection, but I'm sure that won't cause any problems. Not for you lot anyway, it's destroying my voice. So yeah, so I picked the game up off Steam and I started to obviously play the game. Now, here's a kind of interesting thing that did make me laugh. It's from Starbreeze. Now, these are the guys who made Payday 2. So I don't think there is a game company which has released two, like, polar opposite games like this before, really. I mean, you've got one about mass murder and bank robbery and the other about two brothers trying to save their father on a an emotional roller coaster kind of thing, so yeah, that kind of did make me laugh. So the control system of the game, that you absolutely need a controller to play the game. If you don't have a controller, then you can't play the game, which is kind of a bit lame. I do have a controller, so I was like, you know what, I can use my Xbox controller, that'll be fine. Now the reason for this is because each brother is controlled by one of the analog sticks. So on the right stick you've got one of the brothers, on the left you've got the other brother, and you use the triggers to basically cause the brothers to interact with whatever part of the environment they're near, and that's it. It's a very simple control system, but it's kind of very strange to get used to, like to kind of get your head around it, because you honestly need to take at least, I don't know, 15, 20, 30 minutes to just drill it into your head, that, or kind of like train your brain to control two things on the screen at once. It was quite weird. I ended up in a situation where one of the brothers would run off, on the right track, let's say. The other brother, I thought, was running off, was following him, but he'd get caught on a fence or something, and it was getting quite frustrating. But as soon as you get round it, you can actually control the brothers quite effectively. It's probably one of those things that if you really get into it, you can really increase your IQ. I don't know. So I'm thinking, okay, I know this is a puzzle game, or there are puzzles in the game. It's not necessarily a puzzle game. I can see this being quite difficult, and I was, honestly expecting some extremely difficult puzzles. So I was totally let down when every puzzle was literally, you could just solve it. You only need one go. You would not. I never died. No, that's a lie. I did die on one section, which was the. It's like a hand glider section. You're kind of on like a, like a Da Vinci style hand glider. You're on one of them. And you have to move the brothers from left to right to distribute the weight to make sure you don't, bounce into the side of the mountains and stuff. Now, this kind of, I think this took me about, I don't know, 5, 6, maybe even 7 attempts to finish, because I kept clipping the mountains at various points. It was kind of more like trial and error than actually like, oh, this is how I control it, this is fine. Because it would sort of speed up at certain points, pretty like, I guess, randomly. It almost felt like it wasn't random. Obviously, it was the same every time I did it. That's why it was like trial and error. And eventually, when I did it, I was like, okay, I've done it. You know, this is great. But then there are other things like the brothers tie a rope to each other. In fact, I'll use the dog one as an example. Then I'll get onto the rope one because the rope one's quite funny. There's a dog in a field. Now, I'm guessing this dog will kill you if it gets near because it's quite an angry-looking like bulldog thing. So you use one of the brothers to basically distract the dog while the other brother runs to a safe location, climbs up a bale of hay, and then whistles or waves his arms and distracts the dog, and then the other brother moves. So you can see how that works. Pretty easy. Well, most of the puzzles are like that. They're not really hard. The other one I was going to talk about is the brothers tie a rope to each other. So I'm thinking, okay, this is safety, but obviously I'm also thinking, right, this is going to be involving some sort of swing mechanic thing, you know, with swinging off the brothers. So I'm like, well, the older brother, he looks like he's about, I don't know, 19 maybe. He's a late teenager in his early 20s, something like that. The younger brother, he's obviously like 10 years old or something like that. He's not very old. So there was me trying to do this section with just the older brother as the anchor, so using the younger brother to swing. But obviously you couldn't do that because as soon as your younger brother got to one section, you had to absolutely swing as the older brother. And I honestly expected the younger brother would just let go because it's too heavy. He didn't know, and it kind of made me laugh because it's like, what? How the hell can this little kid hold the weight of the big kid? It was just like, it just made me laugh. I don't know. But there was other points as well where if you speak to somebody, the older brother, he's obviously more mature, so he would ask for directions to this tree that they need to get to find this like tonic to save the father. Which, by the way, there may be some spoilers in this as well, guys. I should have said that before. So, like, if you're scared of spoilers, then just stop watching the video, or risk it. I don't know, risk it for a biscuit. Hey, so yeah, what was I saying? Oh yeah, so. If you speak to certain people, the older brother obviously asks for, you know, more mature things, whereas the younger brother will do stupid stuff. Like, there's a guy tending to his crops, and the younger brother runs and kicks him between the legs, whereas the older brother obviously tries to talk to him. Things like wells. If the younger brother interacts with a well, he'll spit down the well, whereas the older brother just looks at it like, well, you know. I thought that was a nice touch. But I think, like... Oh, and actually, the length of the game as well. A lot of people were saying this is like a 4 or 5 hour game. It's not. It really is not a 4 or 5 hour game. I don't know where the hell that figure's even come from. The game took me 2 hours and 32 minutes to completely complete, yeah? I'm not saying I've done absolutely everything, okay? I could have maybe messed around in the town a little bit more, you know, in some of the villages or whatever, you know, look for more obscure stuff, because there are things you can do for achievements and such. Like, I mean, for one example is there's a bit where you have to pick up a sheep and get the sheep to run in a wheel. So it lowers the bridge so both the brothers can go across. But if you carry the sheep kind of out of the way a little bit, there is a fire which is burnt out. So it's obviously just like, you know, charcoal and whatever's just in the fire, like burnt wood. Well, you can throw the sheep into that and the sheep will turn black. And you get an achievement which I think is called Black Sheep, or Black Sheep of the Family, or something like that. You know, so there are things like that which you can do. And also at the same point, you can throw a rabbit into the fire and you get the same sort of thing. Like, so... there are probably a lot of that which I missed. Oh, and there was also like a big giant horn which I blew as well. But I'll get onto the giants in a minute. So maybe you could say, okay, well, if you did all of that, maybe it would extend it to 3 hours. I don't know. But it's not a very long game. And I don't think there's much replayability there as well. Because the game is sort of like... I have no doubt that what you do affects certain parts of the story. But I don't think it really changes the core story. I think that's it. That, you know, there's just a... That's the story, and it's not going to change regardless of what you do. So I don't really think... like I don't have an urge to play through the game again. Although I did enjoy my session with the game, I don't really have an urge to go back and play the game again. So let's talk about some of the positives, because it sounds a little bit negative at the moment. Because I am actually recommending this game to people, because I do think it's a good game. Yeah, I'm kind of getting a bit confused. We'll get onto that in a moment, ladies and gentlemen. The game itself looks absolutely fantastic. I mean, you can see in the video, the art direction, the environment design, it looks great. It's vibrantly coloured, and you know, it really does. I hate to use this term, but it does pop, and it does look quite. You know, it does stand out, and it's probably one of the most visually impressive games I've seen in a long time. Really, I really was quite impressed. But then it kind of like that sort of works for it, and then it sort of doesn't work, because the game initially it looks like a kid's game, a very childish game, you know. So the first, like, I don't know, 40, maybe even 50 minutes of the game, not really that much is going on. You save a troll, you go through a village, you know, blah blah blah. It's not really very adult in nature, which I'm not saying I was looking for the game to be adult in nature, but I thought the game was going to be emotional, and I thought, okay, maybe people have got a little bit overboard with this whole, the game's heavily emotional, all this crap. At that point, when after I've played the game for around about 40 or 50 minutes, I thought, this just ain't the case, what's going on? And then all of a sudden, there is somebody who's committed suicide, hanging themselves off a tree. It's like, what the hell? You know, like, suddenly it goes very dark, and then there's cultists, there's people being sacrificed, there's a massive war that's gone on. You're like going through a battlefield with these giants, but I'll get onto that in a moment. So what my point is, the art direction, design, the aesthetics, whatever you want to call it, they kind of, for me, didn't really work as soon as the game became quite dark. I really thought that, okay, this kind of looks vibrant, a bit too vibrant for that type of, you know, it kind of confused me a little bit, and I thought, okay, but at least it's not more of a childish game anymore, you know. But I guess that's more of a personal thing, like with me. So the giant thing, now this is kind of an interesting section of the game, where you go through a battlefield where giants have been fighting, and the giants are obviously massive, and you have to navigate through, but the giants, because they've presumably just killed each other, they're bleeding out everywhere, and all the blood's going into the river, and the river's turned red, and it's getting quite, you know, dark, and the river's running down to these cultists who have got this, like, crazy stone thing with all the blood running through, and they've got this woman who they're going to sacrifice and all this stuff. But I thought in fact, I thought most of the segments were visually impressive, but as I said before, I'm not too sure if it did work as soon as it became quite dark, because you could honestly say an innocent parent might buy this game for their kid and think, you know what, this doesn't have an age restriction on it, so I'll buy this for little Johnny, little 7-year-old Johnny to play. And then little Johnny is like having a nice time with his trolls and all kind of stuff. And then all of a sudden there's people hanging themselves and committing suicide. It's like, what? Little Johnny might be scarred for life. I think that's the issue I've got with it. So I think we best talk about the so-called emotional impact, which I can't say I was affected by the game, really. Maybe slightly, but not all that much. Based on what I'd read, based on what people were saying, I guess I had high hopes. I thought this is going to, I don't know, touch me. But it didn't. And I think the problem was, it was a little bit too predictable. Now, this is going to be a massive spoiler. This may change depending on what you do in the game, but I think this probably will always be the case. Although, don't quote me on that. So, you pick up a woman, okay? And you can kind of tell from the way she's interacting with the older brother that she's not okay. She's like a bit sinister, right? The younger brother's like, he makes gestures toward the older brother, like, no, like, this is not right, blah blah blah. You could kind of see this coming. At least I could, where the woman would turn on the older brother, and she does. And in fact, she killed him. So I knew that. I didn't know it was going to happen, but I kind of expected it to happen. So when it did, I wasn't really that shocked. I was just like, oh, okay. The younger brother's obviously a bit distraught that his older brother's been killed. So when he actually dies, you go through this section where you use the younger brother to pull the body of the older brother and put him into a grave at the bottom of the tree, where you get the like the magical elixir of life from to give to your father, because it's the only thing that can save him from this crushing illness he's got, which is basically the whole the main story of the game. You put him in the hole, and then you fill the hole in, and then the brother obviously mourns over the death of his older brother. But this whole segment takes quite a lot of time, and I think it's there to try and say, now you need to be emotional. But really, I was just like, yeah, I expected this, so I'm honestly not really that emotional, and it kind of was a little bit lame. Now, maybe again, this is just me, but I'm not some sort of crazy person who has no emotions or whatever. You know, I can get affected, but this game really didn't affect me that much. I found the story kind of all throughout fairly predictable, if I'm totally honest. But like I said, this is a good game. This is a game I recommend people should play. The control system's pretty innovative. The puzzles, okay, they're not that hard. The environments look awesome. I mean, play it just for the environments because they look absolutely amazing. The amount of effort and design that's gone into them, they're crazy. And it is a decent story, although I found it kind of predictable, like I said. And it's not too long either. But then I guess you could argue, well, the thing is, Sty, it's $11.99 in the UK. And whatever it is in you know, around the world, that's like the price of going to the cinema. So, you know, if this is only going to last as long as, let's say, a fairly long film at the cinema, then that's kind of fine. And I guess you could argue that. But what I would say is this is not something I would say go out and buy right away. This is something which is going to be around for a long time. This is something which is going to be in Steam sales. This is going to be something which, you know, it might even be in indie sales. I mean, the fact it's classed as an indie game I don't entirely agree with because it's from Starbreeze, and I don't think they're an indie studio considering how much money they've made with Payday 2. Yeah, so that's kind of like up for contention, I think. But I do think people should play this game, but only when it's going in some super sale. Because I can see this being 75% off. You know, pay £3 for it or whatever, $3.75 it'll probably get reduced to on Steam and all that stuff. So yeah, those are my thoughts on Brothers: A Tale of Two Sons. You can see how the reason why I got rid of my notes, because I didn't want this to be a review of the game. I just wanted to have a discussion of the game, because I don't entirely agree with the opinion of everybody else, which is this is an amazing game, this should be game of the year, blah blah blah, because I don't think it should, but I think it's a good game, and I think it's a game people should play. And those are my thoughts. If you like the video, ladies and gentlemen, then like the video. If you don't, then dislike the video, that's fine. And make sure you subscribe to the channel as well. I've been Stylosa, my voice is about to give in, and I'll catch you next time, people. Toodaloo.